You're watching West Hartford Community Television.
You're watching West Hartford Community Television.
You're watching West Hartford Community Television.
For the community, by the community.
Good evening. Welcome to As I See It, A Blind Woman's View. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Again, I'm excited about my guest. I guess it's since I picked the guest, it's a good thing that I'm excited about them because that would be very bad if I wasn't. Tonight we're going to talk about accessibility. In the past, I've talked about accessibility in terms of using a guide dog, and I've talked about accessibility in terms of using a cane for travel, and I've talked about accessibility in terms of computers. But I haven't talked about other kinds of accessibility, either for someone who's blind or for someone with a different disability. And as I always say every week, my name is Andrea Giudice, and I have with me my guide dog, who I am not introducing for benefit of our safety and his focus. And of course, because I have a new topic, I need to bring in a new expert, because I like to surround myself with people who make me look really smart. So tonight I have with me someone who can talk to us a tremendous amount about accessibility, both in the big picture for getting around, whether you have a mobility impairment, and also for on a smaller scale for daily living skills and just a vast array of things. So Don, I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I'll have you introduce yourself and your title since you do it so well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm Don Horman. I'm the manager of the Equipment Restoration Center at NEAT. And NEAT stands for New England Assistive Technology. It's a center of Oak Hill, the Connecticut Institute for the Blind, Oak Hill. And we've been around for 15, 16 years now. We have some favorite sayings like you or someone you know needs NEAT because people either have equipment that they don't need anymore and they need to donate it somewhere or get rid of it somehow. People don't want to throw away perfectly good, durable medical equipment, and they shouldn't. Or you need equipment, and whether insurance doesn't cover it or Medicare doesn't cover it, that's what we're there for, to fill in that gap so that everyone gets covered and gets the equipment they need. We sell our equipment at less than half of new. There's no eligibility or criteria. We're open to the public. We sell to everyone.
That is fabulous. And it's really interesting because I feel like, I know I'm dating myself, although at least that means I got a date. Cy Sperling, he was the hair club for men. He was a client and he also worked there. That's what I am to NEAT. I work at NEAT, I have volunteered at NEAT, and I've also benefited from the services, the equipment that NEAT sells. And I will admit that when I first became aware of NEAT, I was thinking it was for things like walkers. And did I know that there are 100 kinds of walkers? No, I did not. A walker is not just a walker, folks. So I had no idea of the vast array. Everything from something very small that might help you, a grabber, to something as complicated and essential to everyday functioning as a power wheelchair. And everything in between. So I loved learning that, and I love being a part of the team that makes this all happen, and I'm hoping that you can share lots of that with us and maybe some fun stories too.
Absolutely. I brought a little tiny sample of some of the things that we have at NEAT. There is nothing like seeing it. We are at 33 Coventry Street in Hartford. We're open 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, and the first and third Saturday of every month, 9 to 2. So if you have any need or if you have extra equipment, we'd love to see you come down and see it. There's nothing like touring and looking around to see the vast array and the assortment of equipment that we have. everything from canes, crutches, walkers, wheelchairs, scooters, power chairs, hospital beds, all the way down to little things to make everyday life easier, like forks and knives and spoons. I brought this as an example. You can't really tell on television, but this is a weighted knife. So someone with Parkinson's, with the tremors, this knife, and there's forks and spoons as well, but that weight takes the tremors away a little bit. So they're able to successfully cut their own food and feed themselves. One of the expressions that we use a lot at NEAT is independence. And independence is such a simple and overused word. What it means is that you're doing something by yourself, for yourself. I did a field trip for a bunch of children in Bristol a few weeks back. And it was great to see them all embrace the equipment, and I did a little caning lesson and blind experiment kind of thing. And I said, do you know what independence means? And they all gave me the standard definition. I said, what it means is that you do something by yourself. Who here has fed a baby? And a couple of hands raised, people have fed a baby. I said, do you think me as a grown man would like to be fed like a baby? Nobody raised their hands. And I said, exactly. So if I have a stroke or I have some condition where I can't feed myself, if we can come up with a gadget so I can be independent, feed myself, eat my macaroni and cheese by myself, and no one has to feed me, isn't that a wonderful thing? Simple, but wonderful. And they all agreed.
It's interesting too, because as I learn my job and am there more, what I realize is it's not just individuals coming in for themselves, but we have physical therapists and occupational therapists and people from birth to 3. And so we're working with people who maybe they're coming in for a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old. Maybe they're coming in for someone who's 102. Right. It's so interesting that we're covering that whole spectrum, sort of a womb to tomb kind of thing. And what's also interesting is, let's say a physical therapist comes in and they're looking for a specific thing. I love how 3 hours later, they're still looking around because they're so astonished with all that we have and they're so excited. And that's so cool.
It's very fun to be a problem solver. Some people come in and say, I used to be able to do this and now I can't do this anymore. Is there a thing that helps me do that? And that's what makes me want to go to work every morning. It's just a wonderful feeling to be able to solve the problems and help people be independent and live more full lives. And
you said this started about 15 or 16 years ago, and when it started, it was just you, correct? You were sort of the main cook, bottle washer.
Basically, yeah. It started out very small. We were sponsored by the Oak Hill School for the Blind, and it started very slowly. I was tracking phone calls and emails, and I think I had 90 to 100 phone calls and emails for the entire month for the first year. Now we average 90 to 100 phone calls and emails a day. It's changed significantly. We have, instead of just me, and then I was allowed to hire someone, so it was 2 people for a few years. Now we have 2 or 3 full-timers and about 10 part-timers and another whole list of volunteers and program workers and different participants who come in and give us as much time as they can. So it's really grown, and it's wonderful.
And how we get our equipment is interesting, because a lot of people think that we're kind of like a grocery store where I can say, well, in aisle 5, we have 15 of number 7 blue wheelchairs with green wheels.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works.
It's very similar to Goodwill or Salvation Army, any of those places that rely on donations and then turn around and sell the equipment. The biggest difference is that we professionally restore the equipment that's donated to us. We sterilize it and clean it and get it as close to new and original condition as possible and sell it for less than half of new. Again, filling that gap with what insurance or Medicare would pay for and what people have to buy on their own. So I have some pieces here. Would you like me to start?
Please,
okay.
I would love for you to.
All right. I'll start with some things. I kind of like to go through a house. Like if you were entering the home, how would you access it if you were using a wheelchair or a scooter? If anyone has ever moved a large piece of furniture like a sofa, the first thing that they say when you can't get it through the doorway is take the door off the hinges. Well, that works for regular doors or like a bedroom door, but a bathroom door, people want their privacy, so you can't take the door off, and if you rent, you can't take the door off. So this is a simple solution. This is called an offset hinge. This allows you, this would be a set of 2 or 3, and this allows you, instead of the hinge pin being here, the hinge pin is way back here, and that means when the door is open, it's out of the way of the door frame. And that extra thickness of the door is probably all you need to get your power chair or your wheelchair or your walker through that door. A lot of bathroom doors are very narrow, and this is a great simple solution. We have a saying at NEAT. There's 3 solutions for every problem: high tech, low tech, and no tech. So this would be a no tech solution to that problem. Should I keep going?
Absolutely.
This is a little cane tip. This is something that would attach to the tip of a cane, and it would flip out of the way when you don't need it. Flip so the cane would be here. And then when you're going out on the ice or slippery grass to watch the grandkids play soccer, this sticks down and you have better traction. The rubber tip won't slip on a slippery surface like ice or snow or slippery grass.
That is so cool.
Simple solution. I think they're $12 new. We sell them for $5. This is a great invention. This is something called a handy bar. This allows a person to use a handle where there is no handle in your car. When someone opens the car door, whether it's the passenger side or the driver's side, this would go in the latch. Ralph Nader, a Connecticut native, made sure that the door latch is the strongest part of your car. And this would go right in the door latch when the door is open, and you can push down, you can rock the whole car, practically lift the car with this, and it won't break the bolt. It also has a little safety thing for breaking glass and cutting the seatbelt in an emergency, but the best thing about it is, so you can put that in the door latch and then push down and be able to stand up.
And that's so portable, so that can go with you if you don't have
Right.
your own car, or you have you are a person who's got 3 or 4 different children or grandchildren who are transporting you. That just stays with you, and it goes to every vehicle you're in.
Yep. It fits nicely in the pouch on the door, but it also can go in the pocket or purse. It's a little heavy for a pocket. But
You need a really strong belt.
yeah. And then once you're inside the living room, everyone likes to watch TV, even people with low vision or blind. This is a remote that you're never going to lose. This thing is huge. It has a contour for the leg. It can sit there. It has tactile reference on it for the buttons. And when it has batteries in it, it lights up. And this is a universal remote that just needs programming, and it'll work in most televisions.
Awesome.
Awesome. So from there we go to the kitchen. There's all kinds of things that help people eat independently, by themselves. Whenever I eat Niblets corn, they run across the plate and I have to chase them. Well, this is a scoop plate. It has one side that's raised, so if someone had a stroke or they can only use one hand, or for whatever reason, you can use the scoop part of the plate and successfully eat by yourself and not be fed. It also has a ring on the bottom, so it's non-skid. It won't move on the table. Simple solution. I think these are less than $10 new, and we sell them for a couple dollars.
You're right. You alluded to this earlier when you were talking about the field trip that you had with the students. But when people think about independence, I know when they talk to me about independence, they are really talking about my ability to get myself from point A to point B without necessarily having assistance. I might be using a taxi or I might be using a bus, but I'm doing it independently. People think globally, and they think big picture. And a lot of times that, while is really important, it can be hard to want to go places. It can be hard to want to do something if you can't even feel like you have any control in your own home.
Right.
Why would I want to go out into the big world and try to take that on when I can't get through my own meal without feeling like I have control? And so the things that you're showing and the items that you're and the examples that you're giving, it's so awesome, because I think that people forget. It's easy to forget all of the things that we do in a day that we don't ever think about. What are the mechanics for getting that done?
Exactly.
And how frustrated and humiliated and angry and disabled would we feel if we couldn't do those things? And
Right.
I know personally, it's not the disability of blindness that often is the most disabling. It's the world that is a sighted world that I'm trying to function in. that causes me to feel that blindness is a disability. And so the customers that we have are struggling with the same thing.
Yeah, different disabilities, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then I just brought some other gadgets. Now, I'm not condoning any certain brand or any manufacturer, but this is kind of a fun thing that shows that there's different things out there and a whole world of things. This is called a foot flush. So if someone did have the ability to use the toilet independently, they can do it themselves, but they, for some reason, can't reach or can't extend to flush the toilet. This is an alternate way to get the job done.
That is so cool.
Yeah, push it with your foot.
Who knew?
Who knew? And it's a clever invention. I think they're $80 to $100 new, but it's one of those things where you're not aware of until you need it. I also brought this telephone. This is the one with the pictures on it. This is kind of nice because it, what I would call, has universal appeal. It was initially designed for people with Alzheimer's or dementia kind of thing, where if they couldn't remember numbers or they couldn't read a list, you would do better by seeing pictures. So you have maybe daughter, son, grandpa's, whatever pictures are appropriate. And this would also be used for, say, a latchkey kid, a child going home after school by themselves. They don't have to read numbers. They don't have to remember anything. That mom is preset 1, just hit mom's face. And then
That's awesome.
Oh, dad,
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's visual. It doesn't work for blind or low vision, but it's still very tactile, big buttons, very loud. So it works with low hearing as well. But there are so many different phones out there with loud ringers, amplified voices, amplified hearing for every type of disability that you could imagine. It's an electronic age.
It is.
Now this, going back to what I said about high tech, low tech, and no tech, this is definitely high tech. This is a medicine manager, CompuMed it's called. I'll turn it, I'm not sure which camera we're using, but this has places for medicine for 4 times a day, 7 days a week, and you program it so that when it's time for the medicine to come out, and it's locked, so they can't take it ahead of time, the medicine would come out in the front, and the digital screen would tell you what time it was and what time it was to take what medicine.
That is so important because I know for a lot of people, I talk to friends who have grandparents or parents who, you set out the pills, you set up the weekly thing, but it's the person taking the medication has total access and they forget, and then they go, oh, well, I didn't take that stuff yesterday. I'll just take it today, along with this medicine from today.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, that's not a good plan. So and medicine can be overwhelming, especially when you start getting into those 4 times a day type of medication applications. Yeah. And that is fabulous.
And this is actually fairly old technology. There's newer stuff out there now that work with smartphones and the internet so that someone else can monitor remotely. Mm-hmm. You can have your supervision from California.
Oh, that is really awesome.
Doesn't matter, so that they see on your message that you took your medicine at 8 o'clock and that you're up and about, and there's a varying degree of, I'll call it invasive methods, limited invasive or more invasive, so that they know that you're okay and that you're taking your medicine and you've gotten up, you made a meal, and that you're okay.
But that's the really wonderful thing about aging in place, is that now with technology, when you, especially if you do live a distance from the person who you're worrying about, the person who's needing some extra assistance, instead of saying, well, because I live in California and you live in Maine, there's no way you can live by yourself, I'm sorry. Now there are all these different technologies to say, well, you know what, with the right systems in place and the right procedures, you have a lot more opportunity for someone to live independently far away from their family. And that's an exciting piece of part of technology.
Absolutely. The smartphone is going to be the go-to device for many, many systems of that kind of thing, monitoring people, monitoring medications. communication. There's all kinds of programs out there now. You're going to be able to control your whole house and everything, your whole life, right on your smartphone.
Which is sort of good and sort of scary.
All at the same time.
It's really scary when my phone and my dog are smarter than me. I'm not sure I like that, both of those things being true. Did you bring other devices?
That's all I brought. I just had a little suitcase.
Okay.
There are different utensils. This one, like I said, was weighted. There are different utensils that would wrap around someone's hand so that if they didn't have the ability to grasp, say arthritis or CP or whatever, and their hand was gnarled, you can find a way. There are forks and spoons that you can put in and wrap around the wrist and hold them in place with Velcro so that someone can eat their macaroni and cheese by themselves, so, or whatever they want.
Right. And there's these are really interesting, you call them gadgets, but devices that you brought with you. But what's been fascinating for me working at the Equipment Restoration Center is all of the really majorly complicated and large pieces of equipment, for lack of, I mean, there's hospital beds, there's any number types of power wheelchairs, there's recliners that help you lift recliners that help you stand so that you don't have to, physically get yourself out of your recliner. Yeah. There are all kinds of things for kids, for helping to learn to walk and to be able to sit. If a child doesn't have the trunk strength to sit themselves up, there's all kinds of chairs to help them be able to sit down on the floor with their classmates to play, and then be up higher to be able to, help with feeding or giving medication. And this was amazing to me. So before I started working at NEAT, at the Equipment Restoration Center, I knew the term shower chair, right? Everyone's heard of a shower chair. So the first day I'm there and I say to Don, "Oh, someone called, they need a shower chair. Do we have any?" And he says, "Well, yes, but is it a shower chair with a back or without a back? Is it a shower chair with wheels or no wheels? Is it with arms or no arms? Is it reclining?" I'm like, "What? Huh? Really?" So I've learned just in the couple of months that I've been there that there, even these things that we sort of think we know what they are, a toilet riser, right? There's one of those things you put onto your toilet seat. They come with arms and tops and backs and
go under the toilet, go between the seat and the toilet. There's probably 7 or 8 different kinds of
right.
toilet
And so
risers.
Who knew? Like I certainly, Don knew. I didn't know. Someone who works at a durable medical equipment company knows. But what is so wonderful for me is that, and I know this is true for Don and for everyone who works at the Equipment Restoration Center, is that the phone rings and you never know what the person's going to need. And sometimes it's fun because the way that, people don't know the terminology, just like I didn't.
Variations.
I fell into saying electric chair. We don't want to give anyone an electric chair. We want to give them a power chair. And it is funny because there is a brand of chair called Quickie. So sometimes someone will call on the phone and say they want a Quickie, which always makes me smile.
You'll never forget your first Quickie.
You'll never forget your first Quickie chair. That's very true. And it's not like working at a typical phone where someone calls and says, okay, I need one, and we do the same thing. So everyone's calling for the same device. And you have to learn to really listen. I had a customer on the phone the other day, and they were using words that weren't necessarily the words that were the quote unquote correct words, but I understood what they needed and I was able to sort of redirect them. And when someone comes in and they get something and it's so exciting. And when a physical therapist or an OT comes in, or a birth to 3 person, and they walk out and they've got just what they need to make the day, week, world of another person, that is so cool.
We're very busy on Thursdays and Fridays because a lot of people's parents are in a rehab facility or a nursing home, and they can go home either for the weekend or permanently if they have these pieces of equipment: elevated toilet seat, a bath chair with a back,
a
rollator walker, or a whole list of things. And we work closely with the rehab hospitals. So some of the rehab hospitals actually give people pictures and say, you need this. And oh, by the way, NEAT has those, so go buy them from NEAT. You'll save a lot of money. But that works out really well, especially for the Mount Sinai branch of St. Francis Hospital. But it really is a feel-good place to work. People come in either exasperated or frustrated at the whole situation. They can't find what they need, they can't pay for it, the insurance gave them a hard time, and they come in here and they get what they need. It's used, but it's in perfectly good shape, and they saved money at the same time. And I got a thank you note. My first couple of months of working at NEAT, I got a thank you note for the most expensive piece of equipment I had sold up to that point. I was selling wheelchairs for $100 and this and that for 20 and 50 here and there, but this one piece, it was a very expensive power chair, and I sold it for $900. I got a thank you note because it was only $900. And I was feeling a little guilty. Initially, I was like, okay, we have to get $900 for that one because of all the work that we had to put into it and batteries, and there was cost involved. But she actually sent me a thank you note.
Because
it
that
was
power
only-
chair new would have cost thousands.
Yeah, probably close to $10,000.
And it's another thing. I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. So someone out there found my train. Please send it back this way. When I first started working for you and I was on the tour, you told me a couple of interesting things. First of all, I would like it if you could tell a little bit about the building that we're actually located in.
Oh, okay.
And second of all, talk about the map that you showed me. That shows
Oh,
all
yeah,
of the
yeah, okay.
places.
Yep.
Those are two things that I found fascinating.
Okay.
Especially the
Well,
map.
first of all, we are in the Oak Hill School for the Blind's swimming pool building. It was built in 1969 as a swimming pool for the blind kids that were on campus at Oak Hill. There was a residential school, and over the years, especially in the 70s, mainstreaming happened, and that meant that if you lived in Newington and you had a blind child, that blind child went to Newington schools. Newington had to accommodate you. So the whole need for a central school for blind kids didn't really exist anymore. And they decided not to become a magnet school, but they changed and they focused on everyone, all ages, all disabilities. So it wasn't just blind kids, it wasn't just developmentally disabled kids, it was all ages, all disabilities. And we now operate, Oak Hill operates more than 80 group homes, 20-something, 30 education sites all over the state. So it's really changed, but we are in the basement of this swimming pool building, which used to be where the pool is. And so one of our display areas is the old shallow end of the pool, which we lovingly refer to it as the shallow end. And our workshop is on the other end, and that's the deep end.
And it was so funny because when I got to work and I was looking at the phone list, it was there was a phone extension for the shallow end and the deep end, and I was like, what is he talking about? And just let's quickly talk about the map, because that
Okay.
was so interesting to me.
Well, when we first started, we put a map on one of the doorways into the shallow end, and it was a map that tracked internet sales, because we were proud of our very new internet ability and selling on our website. And we tracked donations that we would gather and give to people who, organizations who asked us for donations going to third world countries, South America, Central America, and so forth. So we would put dots on the map all over, and then it was just a map of pretty much the US with a little bit of Bahamas and Central America and Mexico. So after a while we needed a bigger map. So we got a bigger map thanks to National Geographic I found somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's a map of the world, and we have flags all over the world, and it's tactile, so you can run your hand over it, and the little flags are sticking up all over the world. There was a woman who flew up from Miami, bought $1,000 worth of stuff. I gave her another $1,000 worth of stuff, walkers and wheelchairs and things. We filled the truck. I drove it down to the docks in New York City the following week, and then she flew over to Moscow and met it.
Oh, that is so cool.
So we have truckloads of equipment in Moscow.
That's great. So just quickly, give us again the website for the Equipment Restoration Center.
www.neatmarketplace.org. And then over on the side, it says buy equipment.
That's awesome.
Something like the little button about equipment.
I want to thank you so much for coming tonight, and I want to thank all of you for watching, and I want to encourage you, please, if you know anyone who can benefit from our services, if you know anyone who can benefit by donating to us, that would be great. This evening...
We are always looking for equipment, quality
Yes.
used equipment, absolutely. And we do free pickup. It's tax deductible.
You have been watching As I See It, A Blind Woman's View. Thank you for tuning in, and have a fabulous month.